Hi everyone, this is Niladri, and today I'm going to share with you a presentation on risk management. Risk management is one of the core concepts of project management lifecycle, and the entire project team, along with the project manager, must be suave with the basic fundamental concepts of risk management to make sure the overall project is delivered and managed in a successful way. Risk management is a huge concept, and there are many articles and many books out there. However, in this presentation, I'm trying to share with you the basic fundamental concept in just 3 slides, which will help you to use the risk management concept in your daily project. Now, it's a mainstream idea that risk is a negative term. However, if we pluck out a page from the PMBOK, we will see risk is defined as an uncertain event or condition that, if it occurs, has a positive or negative effect on a project's objective. So it's got both a positive or a negative effect, and you will see the word project is bold, which means a positive for the project and a negative to the project. Okay, not for a team member or something else. And if you look down, this is something, a risk register, a document which is widely used in many projects to successfully manage the risk. Now, coming down to risk management, in the entire project life cycle, we rub shoulders with the risk in the very initial stage when, as a PM, you formulate the project charter, and there you jot down the high level risk. However, in the project planning stage, that's the time you develop a very useful document which is shown here called risk register, and which is shared with the entire team for everyone to jot down their risk. Okay, and this document is open from the planning till the closing stage of the project. And again and again, this document will be looked upon maybe in a risk status meeting or in the project status meeting, and an individual can share his or her opinion with the entire team or can ask for advice for a particular resolution or action on a risk. Having a quick look into the options in the risk register, very simple. We have got some couple of steps. First one is identifying the risk, jotting them down. Okay, second is the risk type. A risk can be a threat or an opportunity. Third one is prioritize the risk, probably high, medium, or low, as per your own sense of the risk. Probability, very simple. We are trying to quantify the risk. So the chance of the risk to occur, maybe a percentage value, 20, 30, 40%. Impact, how much you think the risk is going to impact the project. Okay. And then a very interesting concept called earned value, or the expected monetary value of the risk, which I'm going to cover in the third slide and show you what exactly is that and how do we do that. It's basically conversion of a risk to a dollar value. And the most important part of this entire document is the risk response, which I'm going to share in the very next slide and show you in detail what are the different response strategies to a risk. The last one is an action plan, your special comments about your next steps for that risk. So let's start off with the risk response strategy, because the remaining are kind of very simple, and then we will come down to the expected or the earned monetary value of the risk. Risk response strategy. And starting with that, the two ways in which we can define risk for a project is threat, which is the negative impact of a risk, and an opportunity as well, where we have got a positive impact of a risk. Now, when you look at a risk, there are only four ways to confront a risk. Okay. The first one is elimination of the risk. If you scale the risk from 0 to 100, here you're trying to bring down the entire risk from whatever the number, maybe 90, 95, 80, straight down to 0. Now that's the ideal way to confront a risk, and we'll talk about it more. If it's not possible to eliminate a risk, then we will go for minimizing the risk, to push down the risk to the maximum lower level which is possible. So if 90 is the risk number, we'll try to bring it down to say 40, 30, 20, as much as possible. Third one is relocate the risk, where we are trying to pass the ownership of the risk to someone else. And remember, in this case, the risk is neither eliminated nor minimized. It's just that the ownership of the risk has changed. Okay. And the last one is keep the risk. Basically, you do not do much, and you really cannot do much, or you try to ignore the risk because it's a very, very small risk and you can just keep on going by ignoring the risk, and it's not a showstopper in the project. So, when we are trying to eliminate the risk, coming to the category of threat, let's say it's a negative risk, then the risk response strategy will be avoid. Example can be that suppose your client is asking you to build a next generation of data center, and on that you are going to procure some new generation of data center switch, which you find out that they are having a heating issue after some workload. So you completely avoid to purchase those generation of the data center switches, and you go for some other brand or some other generation of data center switches which are not having that problem. So you completely avoid and you eliminate the risk. A very, very ideal way to resolve a risk, and that's why that's one of the topmost ways to confront a risk. Sometimes it is not possible to completely avoid a risk, and that's when we have got this term called minimize risk, for which the action strategy is mitigate. Now, many a times you might have heard in many, many project meetings or status meetings, what is a mitigation plan, right? Now, mitigation is one of the risk response strategy. However, it is a kind of a overused word, okay? And that's why people normally ask for a risk mitigation strategy rather than a risk response strategy, which is fine in some cases because most of the time you are going to mitigate a risk and you really don't have an option to either avoid or relocate or keep the risk. So mitigation is your action to the risk to bring it down to the minimum level possible. However, you cannot bring it down to zero. So in the same example, in the data center switches, where you see that there is a heating problem, but your client says they need that generation of the data center switch only because their data flow is something on those lines which depend on those kind of switches. So you really cannot purchase something else. What you can do, you can sit with the architect and your key stakeholders and maybe find out a good cooling plan, okay? Or maybe a threshold. When the workload will reach a certain number, then there should be a kind of alert where people will be asked to maybe shut down few kind of workflows, and that's how you're going to mitigate that heating issue. All right. Third one is relocate, and a classic example of relocate, which is transfer, is insurance. In the same kind of the situation which we spoke about the data center, let's say the data center switches are supposed to be in the transit from one city to another where the client is planning to build that data center, and there can be a accident, there can be some damage to those equipments while in the transit. So what you can do, you can completely relocate the risk to an insurance company, and they are going to bear the cost if something happens. Remember again, it's not going to eliminate or minimize the risk. You're just transferring the ownership of risk to a third party like insurance company. And the last one is keep the risk. Accept is one of the last option in the risk response strategy. It means that doing nothing. Okay, and it's normally done for those very low level kind of risk, like maybe one odd use case in that same data center, even after cooling and threshold, after a lot of permutation and combination. If this kind of use case happens, then probably your heating issue threat will be there, which you can kind of ignore because you have taken the best mitigation plan, but maybe that one odd use case is still there, which is a very, very low priority kind of risk, and the probability of that happening is also very low. The other instance is that sometimes, what happens, things are not in your control. So probably you procured or you went for the procurement of those switches from a vendor, and just before 1 week prior to you could have got those switches at your premise, your vendor informs that there is a hurricane or an earthquake at their end of the warehouse, and they cannot simply transit the devices at your place, and they need a time of again 2 weeks, so a 2 weeks of lag time to get those devices at your premise. Those things you need to accept, and you need to have a discussion, of course, with your key stakeholders, and if there is a sponsor, and if the client is not the sponsor in this case, something on those lines to make sure everybody agrees. But really things where you cannot control, and you have to accept the risk. Now, looking at the opportunity, let's say your client says to you that instead of December, if in November you can deliver the project, the client is going to give you some $10,000 of cash money as a bonus. So that's an opportunity, right? And you would like to take that opportunity. Now when you want to push your project end date to a much earlier date, like 30, 45 days early, then you can either put in your best resource there. So you might have to check that who are the top performers, you might want to pull in them, and also you might go for a cash incentive kind of plan and use that kind of opportunity to make sure that your company really or your project really gets that bonus money. So that first action is exploit. You completely exploit that opportunity. The next one, you really do not have the top performer at your disposal right now. Maybe that person is engaged in some other project, right? So your other option is that you might get a mentorship program, or maybe a workshop, or maybe a trainer arranged for the existing folks, and make sure that they climb up to that level and they can deliver at that speed, and make sure they deliver the project much earlier to the end date. Now that kind of a response strategy is called enhance. Okay, you do not have here, say the third one is that, say you do not have the option either of the top performer, or you do not have kind of a mentorship or a workshop or a trainer kind of in a position to help you to speed up your folks. Then what you can do, you can probably outsource your opportunity to a third party company. You can ask a third party company to get your job done, and probably you can share a little bit of bonus money with them so that they deliver you at the right time. Okay, in this way you earn two things. Definitely you will not be earning the complete bonus money, but still you earn something. And the important part is that your brand name of the company to deliver things on time is still intact. This option is called share. So the difference in the threat is you're doing a transfer of the risk, but in the opportunity you are sharing the risk, right? And the last one, in the opportunity level as well, you can really do nothing. You don't have any of the options with you, either exploit or enhance or share. So you just accept, and you kind of try your level best to try to complete the project before the time. And if it's not done, it's not done, but you kind of accept that risk. So these are the risk response strategies, only four of them, or we can say like seven of them if you combine the threat and the opportunity in both the ends. And if you understand them really well, it will be very easy for you to use the risk register and also to document your risk in a very nice fashion. And your risk can be actioned upon much prior before they take a kind of red or amber light. All right. The last one, like I said, three slides. In the final slide, I would like to talk about expected monetary value. Now, this is an interesting concept. This means you are converting your risk to a dollar value. Okay, probability into impact. Very, very simple. You are quantifying your risk to a dollar value. The probability and the impact numbers are given by the person who will sense the risk. And it's a kind of expert judgment based on your experience, based on your, I will say, gut feeling as well, and based on certain kind of vectors. If you have eyes on, you can put in those numbers. So let's say in the project A, the complete budget for the project, or what we call as the cost baseline for the project, is say 1 lakh US dollar. Okay. And we have got three risks there. And probably at the end of a quarter, we are checking out the risk. So we see the risk one and two are cost, which is threat basically. So the first one is cost of $50,000. That is the impact. So impact we normally give in US dollar, and the probability is zero point 0.1. So the earned monetary value or the expected monetary value of the risk is 50,000, which is minus 50,000 here. It's a cost into zero point 0.1, and you get minus 5,000 US dollar. Similarly, risk 2, we have got a cost or a negative impact of minus $10,000, probability zero point 0.3, and the EMV of the risk is minus $3,000. The last one, the risk 3, now that's an opportunity that is plus $5,000 into probability of 80% or zero point 0.8, and you get the number 4,000. So total EMV is $1 lakh, your cost baseline, plus or minus the entire EMV of the risk, which is minus 5, minus 3, plus 4, that sums up to minus 4, and it's 96,000. Now, why we need to do that? The reason is that the first, you know, note or the first pointer here is that in any project, if the EMV value of the risk is higher than the cost baseline, then it makes no sense to do that project, right? Suppose your EMV value of risk itself is 1,10,000 and your cost baseline is 1 lakh, it will really make no sense to do that project, right? So you can do a kind of cost benefit analysis by looking at earned or expected monetary value of risk. Number two is that you can also put a check on your risk. You see a huge probability or a huge cost is there, or a huge impact of a risk is there for a probability something. You can try your level best to mitigate that, to check that, if not completely eliminate that, and make sure your numbers look more healthy when you are looking at risk in some duration of the project. So that's all from my end. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thank you for watching. I wish you all a great day and a great time.